Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev.
Good day.
Good day. What?
How's it going?
I don't know. Don't know.
That's a good, that's a really good way. Well, you know what? Sometimes we just don't know. That is a real answer.
Well, I've had so much come at me, and when you have a lot not coming at me as life experiences, just a lot of information coming to me from different things I've been listening to.
Yeah.
And really, really, I sat here about an hour before us getting together, sat in meditation. And even before that, as I was getting ready for the day, doing my hair and putting on my makeup, a message was coming to me about using my meditation for a different purpose. I've been using my meditation for visualization purposes, right? Bringing in what I would desire. But something was pulling at me, was like, no, we're not doing that today. My spirit's like, we're not doing that today. I was like, okay. So I just listened and I was guided. I did listen to Abraham Hicks, like a 11-minute morning rampage, right? Shift energy and stuff. But what I was guided to do was just put on some meditation music and tune in and do some writing. So I did that. I did that for about 20 minutes. And the way I started out with the meditation was connecting with source, spirit, universe, whatever that it is you want to call it. And I said, what would you have me know? What would you have me do? And how would you have me serve? And I asked that. It took me about 3 times to ask that. And it came to me, the message for me was to utilize my time and energy and focus in a different way. Stop visualizing what you want. This was a message for me. This isn't necessarily for everybody else. Stop worrying about your reality. Stop worrying about material things. Stop worrying about your finances.
Stop worrying.
Huh?
I said, stop worrying.
Stop worrying, right? End of story. But utilize the biggest message was utilize your time and energy and focus in a different way. So be in meditation and we're going to help guide you. And that was to focus more on being the light and being of service in guiding other people like out of depression, or closing that gap between their human side and their spiritual side. Just focusing more on that, and everything else is going to be okay. So that's what I sat with this morning. Just
nice. That's awesome. That's beautiful.
And it was one of the thing was, your reality is just your distraction.
Yes.
Your reality is just your distraction.
100%.
Husband included.
Body included.
All of it.
Because we can get so tied in all that. You're amazing. No, this is a wonderful conversation. It really is, because we do get attached to so many things, and then we also get attached to the doing of things. So we feel like we got to do something. I can't comprehend personally. I cannot comprehend sometimes when I've got something that seems to be triggering me, and if I can't work on it, if I can't do something about it right this moment, and then I don't have to do anything. It's just a matter of maybe I needed to witness it at that moment. Also, I wanted to bring it to the forefront. Wasn't there a time that you were not able to visualize at all?
Oh yeah, way early in my stages.
100%. So you've visualized and you've mastered it, right? Check mark. I'm done with that. I don't need to do it that way anymore. And then almost like you sat down and auto writed, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. I'll tell you, for me, when you're writing some of that stuff and you look back at it, it's like, first of all, I'll notice words that I don't use. My handwriting will change. It's more of a flow, and even every once in a while I can see where I caught myself, like my mind got in the way a little bit and my handwriting might have changed, or I was like, oh, did I spell that right? So I took myself out of that zone of being in that connectedness to like, to my distraction, right? It distracted me. Our minds, when they're constantly giving us feedback, they're constantly giving us the story, whether it's a good story or a bad story, if it's constantly going, it's a distraction. That's all it is. And it's not a bad thing, right? It's just like that. It's just you're being distracted by something you don't even want to give your attention to, really. You can stop, you can embrace it. It's just whatever. You can ask yourself, what do I do with this information? What do I do? How do I evolve from this? You can just ask yourself different questions. I just think it's amazing that you've gone into this space, that came to you today. Someone else one of your friends might have said, oh, I already recognize that in Amy, just like you could see things in me. I already recognize that in Bev. She'll figure it out pretty soon. She'll, just like just recognizing the gifts, we can tell each other that you have these gifts, or anybody else, but until they start recognizing it and utilizing it, they don't really have a clue. I didn't really have a clue. So just like all this information being stated, it's just for you to sit back into that space and just process things, slow down a bit, notice more. Are you being distracted? What's distracting you? That goes back to us writing down if you're sitting there thinking and you can't get your mind to shut up. Okay, sit down and take note, right? Write down every single thing your mind's saying, because eventually that stuff's going to run out. It's like writing the to-do list. If you don't do a to-do list and you keep it in your head all the time, then you're going to want to go back to that space in your head, and then you forgot something off the list because you can feel it. You forgot something. And I always tell myself, I'll remember. But just to write it down so it's not in the head, right? You just write it down so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. When you think about, God, did I pay that bill? Are my bills on time right now? When you start thinking about that stuff, it's a distraction, right? I even caught myself yesterday writing my bills and or paying some bills and really noticing how did the energy feel in me when I was doing those bills. I know you've gone through a lot of these processes, but I thought that I wasn't doing. I mean, I didn't think anything about it. I never gave it attention until I'm sitting there and I'm feeling how I'm feeling as I'm writing out these things. And I'm like, wait a minute, I got money. What is your freaking problem? Like, why are you stressing about that? And then where do I feel it as I'm having this conversation with you? Like being punched in the solar plexus. And how do we know? It's paying attention to all these messages that are coming into us all the time, all the time. We feel like I feel like I'm stuck. Yeah. When you feel like you're stuck, you're probably keeping yourself stuck. Because a lot of times I would tell you that's what I've been doing. Was I distracted in my mind? I don't know. Maybe I wasn't present enough. And then we were talking about stuff because I woke up this morning with dizziness, a very mild vertigo with certain movements. And we started looking about it and talking about, I don't know. So you said something about the head. It was close to the end of it. And I realized, well, yeah, mildly. Yeah, I probably believe I am in that space a bit, whatever. Acknowledging it and then recognizing, we're talking about The Secret Language of Your Body by Ines Segal, but just looking at what did vertigo mean? And so we looked it up and we were talking about it. It's just processing, and it was nice because you were saying it out loud. So then I got to hear it because I forgot my glasses in the other room because I have it, but we can also do this. So one way of doing it, I can listen to it from someone else and I can feel within my body what resonates. I can read it for myself and I can feel in my body what resonates. I know what's right and what's wrong. If I catch myself say, oh no, that's not true, I have to stop and look at that, take a look at that over again, because if I'm having that response, then I'm stopping with myself and I'm asking myself, are you being triggered right now? Because if you're being triggered right now, let's find out what this is about. Let's find out how to expose it. Let's find out how to cleanse it. Let's find out does my inner child need to be hugged right now? Do I need to go back to experience so I can have an understanding so I can hug that inner child and walk her forward? I don't know. It's just whatever is needed in the moment.
Okay, so you just covered a whole lot of stuff. So I'm gonna.
I know. Sometimes stuff just.
No, I know, and it's great because I love it. And in the meantime, I'm making notes. I'm like, oh, I got to talk about that. We got to talk about. So I'm just gonna go back a little bit because I did make the statement of and I want to clarify on this so people who heard it, that I said the message that came through was that even my husband is a distraction. And what I need to clarify that, because what I meant by that is in my history, my story, stuff that is still part of my healing process is that sense of abandonment. And he will do some things and that triggers me to trigger that abandonment feeling. And so that is the distraction. Him doing the things that contribute to me feeling abandoned. And that was the message was, look, and I even wrote it down, you've done so much work around this sense of abandonment that you're okay. And his actions are just a distraction. So those emotions that we're feeling that are related to our relationships, those are distractions. And so taking the time to, how long, how long we've been doing this healing process, right? How I've been doing this for like 20 years. And it's like, really, I'm still being distracted by this? Well, it's because I'm giving my attention to it. I'm allowing myself to feel that still. And it's less, it's not as intense as it used to be. It's less. And even, just recently I've had an experience and I noticed how much better I was doing. So for that message to come through this morning was like, oh yeah, I'm just allowing myself to be distracted. It's no different than the shiny objects. That's what we call them in business, that we get distracted by quote unquote shiny objects. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. And what it's doing, it's distracting us from doing our work in our business, which is procrastination. So I just wanted to touch on that and we had this conversation not too long ago, is what's distracting you? What's keeping you from moving in the direction you want to move? What's distracting you from doing your healing process? What's distracting you from maybe just sitting in quiet or meditation? What's the distraction? And then, we can't change something until we acknowledge it. So once you make the acknowledgement, oh, this is what the distraction is, now we can give some attention to that to clear it up. And clearly my message was this morning, you're just being distracted. You're just allowing yourself to be distracted, and we can move past this now. Like, it's like, we can stop doing this now. Like, you've been doing this work for how long, right? So just having that recognition, and that felt really good to me. It was like a validation or confirmation that we don't need to do this. So, and then as you were talking about our mind being busy, right? The to-do lists and stuff like that. Interesting enough, I just had this conversation with the lady a few days ago, and she was telling me, because I was telling her I was getting ready to teach a meditation class at the community college, and she's like, oh, I can't meditate. I've tried. And then we're just having this conversation. And she goes, I just think about everything. And I'm the type of person if there's a problem, I got to solve it. And well, our minds are problem solvers. That's what we do. That's just what we do. So I suggested to her, and so this might be for the viewers, is at night, before you go to bed, do a mind dump. You get a pen and paper. It doesn't have to be linear on the lines. You could write all over the page, but just take whatever it is you're thinking about and just put it on the paper. Pay bill tomorrow, whatever. Gotta do shopping, gotta, you probably even get a solution to a problem. Just write it down, because there's probably nothing you're going to do about it in that moment as you're just going to bed. So write down the solution. That way it's there for you in the morning. So whatever, maybe you got some emotions being stirred, write it down. I'm feeling uncomfortable about this. I have a little anger towards this. I'm feeling sad about this. Just regurgitate whatever's going on in your brain. Put it on paper, and then it's on print form. So now you can have something to reference. Even if it's 2-3 days down the road, you can flip back to that page and go, okay, yeah, this is what. Okay. So it's a great way to just clear that mind. If you could do it even before meditation, just do a quick mind dump. Then you have less mind chatter going on. The other thing is that you mentioned about me reading to you, and then sometimes we read something, but we there's something that we read that triggers us, but we kind of skip over it. Our subconscious mind is programmed to keep us safe. That is part of our ego. And so we will skim or skip over words. Like our mind has already seen it. It's already been processed. But by the time we see it and take it in or not take it in, right? We have this ability to just skim over something that our subconscious mind says, oh no, she don't need to see that. Oh no, she reads that, boy, right? So like you said, sometimes we got to read it 2, 3, 4 times and notice, wow, that's really showing up strong in my body. I can really feel that. And when you said it, I was like, yep, I do the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute, there was another sentence there. I didn't even read it. And there's like the paragraph's like this big, like it's not very big, right? It's very,
Oh,
very
yeah.
short. But I'll read through it and I'm like, wait, I didn't read that. So I go back and read it. Like, oh, no wonder I didn't read it. I don't want to do that. That's not it. Denial, right? We get into denial. So yeah, we are such fascinating beings. I just get so excited about stuff like that because it's just so cool.
It is cool. We're always talking about messages and stuff. And when we had our little get together, you, and a few other people and myself, we had a moth flying around. Remember, we had moths flying around and would come over and touch people's faces, which is an unusual thing for me. But touch their faces, their nose, like around their ears, land on them, everything, kind of going around the whole group and touching everybody every single day. So that was on a Saturday, and I don't go back until Wednesday. So I come back in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I think I didn't have one Saturday, but every single day I'm talking to my clients I'm working on a client, they're face down. I would have to stop talking because it would be right on my mouth, like right on my face. And then there was so many in there, and it just gives you an idea of the strength of the message, really. It really is. Then you go back and read this stuff, and then you see, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And I feel like there's an evolution going on, which is awesome. And there's transformation, right? Like all these things going on. And it goes along really with everything that we're talking about. We've got all this information out there for us, and we're constantly receiving information. So even as we're talking about the secret of the secret body of the secret language of the body, even with the vertigo that I felt this morning, it was mild. Now, when I experienced it, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, probably at least 10 years ago, at that time, it was extreme where I ended up going to the hospital. So the message was extremely loud, right? It was extremely loud. Now it was a mild case, and then it goes away, or as long as I don't move my head too fast in one direction or the other, I'm okay. And then I make it to the bathroom on time. But
the manifestations like that in our body, like the vertigo or a headache or even a broken bone, right?
Yeah.
It's an accumulation of where we've been in our head, in our emotions. And it's like, to me, it's almost like the body's catching up to that. It's not, it's not an immediate manifestation. So I know what came to me with part of it was, you'd been talking a lot about your grandkids and how you're seeing that whole dynamic of relationship with them and their parents and you, and having that concern about as they're moving forward, and then, and then you had that, was it last week or the week before? You're like, I realized it's not my job to, you know, that I got to trust in their ability to navigate their life. So to me, it was like a culmination of that, and the body's just letting you know, hey, we don't need to do this. Kind of, it's your distraction. So relationship, I just come back to relationships. They're just distractions from, and keeping us, because we're getting triggered, keeping us from, I'm going to say up level, but
evolving or
evolving, right? Moving forward, expanding, because we're staying stuck or stagnant in that, for me, abandonment energy, even though it's not as heavy as it used to be, still lighter, but it's still there. So
yeah.
so that's what was coming to me when I was reading that to you, because there was a certain line in there. And so that those physical manifestations fall under that distraction label, because that's where our head's been, right? Our head's like, oh, look at this problem, this is how I feel about it. It's heavy emotions settle in, the not good enough story, or the I'm not loved story, I'm not accepted story, like all of that's in our body. Then the body manifests these physical symptoms. They're all distractions. Now, the distraction of the physical body can take us, depending on the intensity, could take us right down the route of the medical field and all the tests and the prescriptions, and then we're distracted from our own power of healing. You can do that path of medical assistance because a lot of times we need that. A lot of times it's so beneficial. And in the meantime, you can go within and you can do your emotional work too, which will most likely clear up or ease up very quickly your shorten that path on that medical field lane, right? Does that make sense?
It does.
So it's identify what's the distraction and what is it helping me do to navigate differently in this life. And it always comes back to, how am I feeling? It's my emotional state. Do I feel good or not feel good? Meaning, do I feel lighter or do I feel heavy? Do I feel bad? Do I feel good? Right? The dichotomies of knowing how the sensation you're feeling in your body. And everybody knows, they know, like they know, but they're not listening. And we've done the same thing. Now we know, and now we practice, and here we are sharing our wisdom.
And listening and not spending much time being distracted, because before some of things would last us so much longer, and now it's like now when a distraction pops up, it's mostly it's like, oh, what can I look at here? Because it's just an opportunity, right? It's just another opportunity to kind of evolve past this stuff, and it, like we've talked about, it just gets easier and easier every single time, and things are easier to spot because you're paying attention to how you feel.
Right.
Yeah, which is what we've been talking about. So it kind of goes along that route. But again, doesn't mean that we don't get in those places. We all have that. We're human. We're in a human experience. We're not just human, but we're in this human experience.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. But where do you want to spend your time? Like, where do you want to be in the creative mode of things? Also, I wanted to kind of go back to something I've noticed recently. I heard someone say, and I've heard it before, but everything kind of hits you. That's why we talk about things, but we talk about them again, and we might say it a little bit different. A lot of the words you've been using today are really connecting with me. We've used the words before, not necessarily like that. So it's a different feel. There's a different dynamics. Think about it. The planets are aligned. We're in a different mode right now. Energetically, there's different things going. There's like all these different factors that play into the whole situation. I don't feel like it's just one thing. But one of the things I've heard is I give myself permission to let go of anger. And it was like, holy shit. I give myself permission to let go of defensiveness. Of course, we know, you get to the bottom of it. It's all about fear and not, it's all about the same things at the basis of it, but it's getting there from, point A to point Z, really, because there's so many different things. But to let go of all of it, to get into that place. And then one thing yesterday that I was doing when I was paying my bills, I was getting excited. And I don't get it. We've talked about it before. I've watched The Secret. I've done a lot of things, but I feel like it's not that oh gosh, I wish I would have done this before. I wasn't ready for it before. This knowledge would have been, I would have used it as, gosh, back if you were doing The Secret, there was I think it's still around. You can go online and find their check and you can print it out and you can write it out. Well, it's great when you're doing that. But when you're writing it out, are you like hopeful? Are you focused on, oh, I need lots of money? Are you focused on how joyful it's going to be able to just do whatever you want? I mean, like, what are you paying it? What are you doing? And I don't think I was in that space before to notice, like, or even to get into that place where you can recognize, oh, I'm not feeling excited right now. What can make me excited? Feeling excited. I'm feeling excited. Oh my gosh, I got plenty of money. All these bills that I can just pay off like that. And I still have plenty of money. It's awesome. But it's also a different confirmation and a conversation that you're having with yourself, because you want to get yourself into the feel good space. You want to get yourself into the space of how it feels. And I know I've heard that a million times, but until you start practicing it, it doesn't make sense. Because then it's like, well, it's still not showing up. Well, these are the things I'm doing now, because now I'm at a space where finally, maybe one extra layer was taken off yesterday of something that was just clogging the way that I was clogging my view of things. Maybe that's all that happened, but now it feels differently. It looks differently. It makes sense. And a lot of the stuff does make sense, but it's just being in that practice. And even if it doesn't make sense, because look at me, look at me go. Even all the way back then, some of the stuff didn't make sense to me, but it resonated with me. Or
Right.
when I say resonated, it felt like that was the right thing, or it was like a knowing thing. And now I'm getting to the place of, even if it's something that I know, I'm asking a question about it. I'm asking questions, because just because I feel like that way, does that really mean that it's true? So we had talked not that long ago, or we were talking about things, and I had ideas. I have ideas in my mind that I feel like that my path, if you want to call it a path, is kind of pulling me or calling me to this space. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm getting focused on that, and I'm gonna channel, and I'm gonna practice the mediumship stuff, because information comes in all the time. So it's just a muscle that we're practicing to flex, and everything else gets you more in tune. But hadn't been doing it. But then sitting here realizing I'm putting freaking labels on everything again. I'm having an idea, an attachment to an outcome, because I think this is the only way. Well, that's not the only way. It doesn't mean I won't be utilizing those skills, but I'm open to whatever that is now. Before, I was narrowing myself down to fit into that spot again, those attachments. And now it's like, I don't know. People ask me, what are you going to do when you retire? I'm following my spiritual path. I don't know. I have no clue. I don't know. I just know, because I've got a knowing. I just know it's time. That's all I know. So I'm just going with it and having faith and seeing whatever is going to go for it. And I don't recommend this for everybody out there, but I've got to trust and honor myself. And that's what I feel within myself. This journey that I'm going through, going on, traveling through, trying to find ways to enjoy all of it. Sometimes some of it doesn't feel so enjoyable, but checking in with the self, giving myself a pep talk. I recognize so much, like I love the ego. I love how our minds love to be solution oriented, so that there's something for it to do. And when I say that, I listen to somebody else and they say, give it something to do. Give it something to do. And then everything is fine. Give it okay, mind, now it's time for you to meditate. So you just give it something to do. We talked not that long ago, we were talking about the gym, and it's really a matter of how are we moving forward? What's our motivation? And if our motivation if it's just to look good, you're probably not going to go to the gym for very long. You're probably not. If it's like you're talking about it, if it's to go on there, not that you said that, what I'm talking about that you said is because you want to make sure your body's strong. We want to have that balance. We want to have that, if something kind of bumps up against us, that we can handle anything, that we'll still be able to manage our balance. And that's the same way, just saying that out loud, it's the same thing that how we want in our spirituality, all of it. We want everything within balance. It's not overdoing one thing or the other, but we honor the body because we're in the body right now. So honoring the body is giving it exercise, giving it cardio, giving it motion, because the body in motion, they've been telling us forever. Whether is that true, I don't freaking know, but it's what they've been saying. Just have to start asking your own questions. There's just so much stuff that's out there that we've just taken for face value because we've been told that, and then not even questioning it, not even checking in with ourselves and feeling it. God, I could probably sit here at the dictionary and probably keep myself busy for the rest of my life just by sitting with each word. Like, how does that feel to me? Okay, well, this is a definition that it gave. Well, how does that feel to me? Does it feel that way? Because words have, it's magic, right? It's power. It's got energy. And I still keep bringing up these conversations like, come on, people, let's get this shit together. Everything's a vibrational frequency. There is absolutely zero reason, zero, that we have to use a vehicle or anything. Honestly, it's a matter of getting into a frequency. So let's get there, people. The faster we get there, the faster we're going to be doing things, and things are going to be different. The faster that we're going to have like an orb that's probably about, you know, a watermelon size, and it's going to power our whole homes, you know, and the homes around us. Like, there's all these things that are there. It's like right here, and it's just a frequency away. So that's why it's so important for us to vibrate higher. That's why it's so important for us to look at these triggers so we can get this weight off our shoulders. That's why it's so important to write down the list. Don't keep all the shit on in your mind anymore, because that plugs you up, that slows you down. When you're sitting there worrying about things, like you said, get it on a piece of paper. Don't keep it in here. It's not supposed to be kept in the body. We're supposed to just get it out of the body, and then we can process it. Why? Because it makes us lighter, because we vibrate higher, because we start seeing things differently. We can, and then our brain, our mind, let's go with the mind, will start formulating amazing things for that frequency. And then we're not caught up in the distraction of everything, because we don't need the distraction anymore, because we've already grown. We've already evolved from it. It's not needed. It's unnecessary. Let's have fun, guys.
Right.
Come on.
When I go back to the mind being a problem solver, as you were talking, what came to me was, first of all, yeah, when we get bored, we create problems because our brain needs something to solve. And then the other thing, what dropped in was drama, right? We are programmed because of our reptilian brain and the fight, flight, freeze, because of saber-toothed tigers, being attacked, yada, yada, need to survive. Drama, of course, is a distraction, but it also gives us something to focus on to solve a problem. However, we get so caught up in the drama and the story that we don't focus on the solution. So if something happens, there's a death in the family, the drama is there's a death in the family, and the sadness and the grief and the what I call lower vibrational emotions or heavy emotions. The solution is, oh, we just lost somebody physically. They're not here to hug and have this kind of a conversation physically. They're not in the physical body anymore. And that's teaching us the solution is to have more of those conversations, to honor those people who are still in the physical body, to hug them more, to say, I love you more, right? So our mind is programmed to focus on drama, and what you do with that information is going to be up to you. Again, distraction. So either you're going to go down that path of just problem oriented, which is I call it the fear lane, or you're going to be solution oriented, which is the love lane, which feels better, by the way, because when we get caught up in the drama, we're in those heavy emotions and it kind of like sucks us down, right? Just like we're sifting in the mud or the tar pit, or it just doesn't feel good. And our goal is to feel good, to have fun, like you were just saying, to experience that joy. We can't do that when we're focused in the muck and guck and sifting in it and staying in it and staying stagnant and being distracted. And to grow and evolve and expand it's to be intentional with our time and energy and our focus. The key word is there, intentional. We gotta be intentional, which means it takes deliberate focus to not be distracted. That's what I got to say about that.
Yeah. And it's a great motive too, because when you're talking, as you're talking about that stuff, what I'm recognizing is when you're talking about all the fear stuff and all the other stuff, we've been being manipulated that way. So this whole time, your power is being controlled. Your power is being taken from you and directed at a situation, at a problem, at a source, and it's not being directed at yourself. So if you want it, that's motivation to me. If you want that control back for yourself, that's what we have control over. We have control on how we feel, and we do. And the more we learn to get past those triggers and stuff, we're not allowing some outside source to control us any longer, which makes us a very powerful being. We really are very powerful beings anyways, but that reinforces it. And again, you're not putting it to something that's not necessary, because it's not that distraction. And because we can, I caught myself in my head like that for so many times. And then it's like you get one little story gets going, and the next thing you know, you just know you're in a bad mood, right? Because you haven't been paying attention to your mind. You don't even know where it came from. You don't even know where it started until you start getting into the practice. And then you start recognizing, and you're like, oh, wow. Then you actually solve the situation much faster. You're no longer in that space. You don't have to be in that space for days, months, years, lifetimes. Because I feel like some of us have done it in lifetimes. Not this lifetime, for sure, but in other lifetimes, I guarantee you I've been that way naturally. I can't see it being any other way.
I love it.
I love it too.
And everything is serving its purpose. So
Everything.
this word distraction, I know
It's a
we've
good
used
thing.
it. Huh?
I said it's a good thing.
It is.
It's
And
awareness.
we've used this word before lightly, but today is very powerful. It's like the word of the day for me right now, because I don't know, I've probably already said it 100 times. Again, anything that's going on in your life that you recognize it doesn't feel good, then our goal is to feel good. Our spirit wants to play and have fun and be in joy. And it came here to do that. Like, I know I struggled with that concept for a very long time, that spirit came here to play and have fun. And I'm like, how in the world is it supposed to do that with all this pain on the planet, the pain and suffering? Even with the pain and suffering around, you can still play and have fun.
Because it's whatever we're putting our attention on, really.
Yeah.
And there's so much to be excited about. There's so much things that you can watch, you can look at, and you can get yourself motivated, but you can sit and feel things and environments and animals. And it's like just to sit outside and watch a bird fly around, like to really don't even label it as a bird, but notice it, feel it. What do you start feeling inside of your body? What sensations? There's plenty of things. This is why I would rather be at home all the time and not have to go to do other things, although I get to grow. But I like to play like that, and you just lose yourself in the time, because there is no time when you're in that space. But I like to feel those things. When you get connected like that, I like to sit and feel it. I like to feel everything, and I guess for probably the first part of my life, I spent myself more in the pain, anger, and isolation and separate.
And then every one of those moments, it distracted you from having fun. It distracted you from being playful.
Yes.
It distracted you from a sense of good feeling. So I wanted to throw that in there because it was like coming in. It's like, you gotta say this. So every moment I feel of sit in that space of abandonment, it's distracting me from something greater and better and good feeling. I'm just, because of what I'm focused on.
Yeah.
Same with anger and disappointment and sadness and all that stuff. And what you focus on grows, right? So if you're focused on the fun and playfulness and joy, and you get more of that, you want more of that, and then you would get more. It just keeps coming and coming. And notice that that's the space that you want to be in more often, and you get less distracted. Like was my part of my whole message this morning.
So I spent my first part of my life that way and all the anger and everything else. And now I don't have to do that anymore. This is my life. I've already been there, done that. I
Yeah.
already got the t-shirt. So now I get to have fun with everything that I'm doing now. I already really felt thoroughly all the other aspects of those things. And I'm, like I said earlier, I'm giving myself permission to let go of it. I don't have to carry it anymore. It doesn't have to be a motivation. It doesn't have to be, it just doesn't have to be.
It's
Doesn't
like,
have to be in an experience. So I get to be in this space of love and joy.
it's like taking a class, right? In school, taking a class and then taking it again during summer school. It's like, really? Really, we're still doing this? I keep taking those classes over summer school. I don't want to, right? Summer, if you think about summertime, for a lot of people, that's the time of play because kids are out of school. They get to relax, quote unquote, relax and have fun and be playful because during the school year, it's what is it, 9 months of typically, unless you're year round, and I get all that. But when I grew up, 9 months of schoolwork and just activities and just being in it. And then summer came, I'm like, woo! I was like, we came wild childs because we felt free. But it's like, I took the class. Why are you going back to summer school? Why are you doing this still? And I can laugh about it now because I think it's pretty funny because that's just the way I've been showing up.
That's awesome.
So I don't want to go to summer school no more. I'm done.
I was just sitting here thinking, we were made to feel like it was like a bad thing to do summer school, but some people actually would take summer school classes to get rid of
Get
a
ahead.
subject so they could get ahead, and summer school was easier and you weren't there full time. So you
Yeah.
could devote more time to a subject. So
So
again, it goes all the way back to perspective. How do you want to perceive something? And that's a difference between being a victim and being free.
as soon as you said that, I was like, ooh, perspective. I just shifted my perspective.
100%. Because I thought the same thing too, because my mind was thinking some movie that I only had seen part of it, and they had to go to summer school, and it was such the horrible thing to have to go to summer
Yeah.
school.
They're like, ooh, really?
Because everybody made it feel like that, right? So that's the
Bad.
thing. We're getting out from under everybody else's ideals and feelings about things. Now it's up to us to feel what
Yeah.
feels good to us. We don't let someone else define our words for us. We don't let anyone else define our lives or who we are for us. Because every time that I sit here and I feel like, oh God, maybe they didn't like me because I did this, and maybe they didn't like me because of that I did that, and all these other things that I'm trying to be for everybody else, and that's not the way it works. I have to be for myself. I get to have this experience for myself, and everybody else gets the opportunity to get the permission to do the same thing. Why? Because Bev looks like she's kind of enjoying life. There's been a lot going on in her life, and she's just having a good old time. Because that's my focus. That's my focus now. It's not always. One of these days, you guys are all going to see me, and I'm always going to be happy. Always.
Dang
It's
it.
never going to be. Always.
Declare that now.
Because it's a choice, right? It doesn't. What feels better when you see somebody when they're smiling or scowling? It feels better when they're smiling. Of course, if you're in a bad mood, well, then that just lets you know, hey, maybe you need to kind of pick yourself up a bit. Listen to some good music. Put your feet in the dirt. I just heard about that again recently. I had a person that had surgery done and they're having swelling and some other stuff. And I'm like, get outside and put your feet in the dirt. It's not anymore. The medicine is not anymore. Go take a Motrin, Advil, any anti-inflammatory. It's not a matter of go take that. Go put your feet in the dirt. Go sit out there for a few minutes. When's the last time you were outside? How many people actually even go outside? And especially when it comes to the summertime, you have to pick your times. But I mean, sometimes you can get cold inside of a building, and that's a good way to get outside for 10 minutes or so. But we just don't, and we're not enjoying life. For me, as long as I have windows around me, I'm okay if I'm inside, but not for long periods of time, because I've got to be able to go outside. It's just part of it's just my nature.
Yep. I'm the same way. I gotta have
Because it
windows.
makes us happy.
I gotta be able to see out of those windows.
True. Yep.
Every morning
100
we have blinds, and every morning I crack those blinds open so I can see outside.
Yeah. I usually do, but lately I've been keeping them a little bit closed in the living room because of just to
Yeah,
keep the cooler in
right.
the house. Yeah.
But then remembering to step outside, right?
Oh yeah, I do definitely do that a few times a day. And sometimes it may only be for 5 minutes or so at a time, but I do it quite often. I was never one when I was a detention officer at our county jail, and I was lucky because I got to do transport. I wasn't the person that was stuck inside. I was always around windows. I was able to transport inmates to appointments of all kinds. But it got me in and out. I was never stuck in one place. I wasn't looking at the same walls because otherwise it just didn't do. I had to get up and move because for me, if I get bored with something, forget it. I'm done. It's done. I'm over. It's ready to go. But that's not a bad thing. That's the way things are supposed to be. That lets us know, check mark. I don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
I love these check marks. I'm like, yep, me too. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Every
know,
time
and it
they
makes me
check mark,
wonder.
I'm like, yep, we're done with that.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, will we get like, as we evolve, we raise higher and higher and higher. I wonder if it'll be where we no longer feel that fight or flight urges anymore. Because I would feel like it wouldn't need to be there as much because we're not using our animal instinct or like the reptilian brain to motivate us to do something. We're actually connected to our guides and our intuition, and everything kind of flows a little bit differently. And you probably would stay out of most problems just because you could see it from a different perspective, and just you wouldn't drive that way, like being the young girl and always liking the bad boy, right? You like the bad boy because they're defiant. And it's like, if I even think about that, a lot of times the reason I like those, it wasn't about the person, it was about the energy of itself, not
Yeah.
being told what to do, not being bossed around, being your own boss. And that was the pushback. I was fighting back against those things, but recognizing from a spiritual perspective, it's motivation, right? It's going full steam ahead and not allowing something to block you or distract you or make you feel less than or whatever, like all the abandonment issues we're talking about, all those things that distract us from outside of ourselves or take us from inside of us to outside of ourselves. Distraction, being trained that you've got to go to a job, you've got to work, 40 hours a week, you need to retire at this age and everything else to set up your family, do the 401k. And I'm not telling anybody not to do these things, but those are all boom, 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 somebody else's ideal for doing things. I can't tell people that you can't achieve and acquire the same amazing things by doing things differently. You don't have to do it exactly the way somebody else said to do it. I think if you trust your internal guidance, you're going to be pulled in the direction that everything's always going to be taken care of. Again, back to your conversation, there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry. There's no fears. There is no distractions. So these things I wonder about. I just wonder about, like the duality. I wonder about as we're raising, because I feel like a lot of the stuff we just have duality and knowing don't go together. They just don't. They're two separate energies, right? When that's it. It's a feeling within inside of yourself that doesn't matter what anybody else says, and it's not a defiant thing. It's just a matter of fact thing. Like, I know that God loves me. Matter of fact, I know. Ooh, that shot
So the
down myself.
duality of that would be, God doesn't love me. Nobody loves me. I'm separate from God. I don't have the abilities to, right? That's to me is the duality, the opposite of, and to
Well,
know.
that takes you down the levels too, right? So but I'm talking about going vibrating higher. So that would be a lower vibrational frequency that you would be in tune with. But I don't know that we would have those feelings of duality the higher we stay in a vibrational frequency. And I'll just use 5D versus 3D because it's two different you're not going to feel the same things in both places. You're not going to have you're not even probably going to have distractions. Well, I would say you wouldn't be distracted. When you're in 5D, you're not distracted because you're focused, you're connected. You're up here. But when we can be distracted on the 3D, right? We can have the duality on the 3D. We could have male, female. We can have labels and names, but on a vibrational frequency higher, then it's a familiar energy. We don't have to have names for it. Of course, then you say, oh, well, I talked to, then I would just flash an image of your face in their mind and they would know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just saying some of this stuff to kind of expand people's minds, because I just don't think those things exist in both places. I don't think we stay in one place 100% of the time, because our conversations, that people that we are around, there's just different things until we can maintain that space. But I'm certainly a hell of a lot better than I ever was at any other part of my life up to this point. I mean, honestly.
Well, even in a higher vibrational frequency, we wouldn't even be having a conversation. We would be in each other's energy and feel.
Well, there would be communication telepathically, because we've even heard communications, I would believe, because we have communications like that. Language is a 3D thing.
Yeah.
So
So
that'll change.
the next time we do this podcast, Bev and I are just going to sit here and stare into the camera at each other, and you guys can pick up on what we're channeling.
We'll practice with mind-to-mind conversation, like a full-on conversation. And then when you can take the seat from my hand, grasshopper.
Yeah. We catch the fly with the chopsticks.
You've achieved enlightenment. And that's part of the process, but I do feel like we are going that direction. I really do. And that's where honesty, integrity come into play, because there's no place for it to hide anymore. And maybe that's what's a lot of what's going on now. Anyways, the vibration has changed, frequency has changed. So we have more people that are becoming aware of things. And now becoming aware of things doesn't mean that we have to go dive down the rabbit hole. It doesn't mean we have to give a lot of energy to it, but it's opportunities to pray, send streams of grace. Because I'm not saying things that aren't happening. They are happening on the 3D plane. So from a 5D perspective, we can have a heck of a lot of a benefit to this 3D area to help raise everybody else up. And isn't that really what we want? When people come to us, I want them to be healed 100%. But if they feel better right now, that's all I have control over, right? And I don't even have control over that, even though I get the false idea that I do have control over that, because when you're in a good space, people that come in and are around you and talk to you get into a good space. Whether they stay in it is up to them. So it's not for me to babysit and hold their hands and make sure that everything's great. And that goes for my family and my littles. I mean, they're my everything, but at the same point, they've got to have their lives. They've got their own ideals, their own thoughts that are already going through their heads, we're just a distraction to them, those poor little guys.
Well, and then, you and I come together and we have this conversation once a week. And afterwards, we go back. It's like we go back to our lives. However, because we've had these conversations now for like 3 years and we've been growing and expanding because of it, we go back into our lives, but we're still having the conversations with spirit, with God, with source. We're still asking those questions and still getting guidance. And so it's similar to when you're feeling down and you're in somebody's presence who is feeling upbeat and contributing to you feeling better and encouraging you to laugh, and you feel a lot better in their presence. But then when they leave the room and now it's you and you're stepping back into your reality, do you hold that energetic vibration, or do you dip back down into where you were before you came into the presence of that person? So that's what Bev and I have been doing, not having the conversations. Like we talk one few times a week, and this is a conversation we're having. And our other communication is usually through text, which is very brief, very short. It's not full-on conversations like this. And so we have these conversations, we're stirring up this energy, we're expanding our conversations about higher consciousness and different things of the space that's 5D, 3D, and we're opening up those channels. And then as we're moving through our lives separately, in physical form, meaning separately, we're still asking those questions, and we're still curious, and information comes to us through podcasts, through books, through other conversations, through just channeling information, through automatic writing. So this is our practice, and it's a choice on, again, do I stay in that good feeling space that I was just encouraged to be in because of this person that I got to spend a few moments with? Or do I go back into my sadness or my anger or my disappointment or whatever that is, and then keep going about my day?
Either way, I think you're evolving, right? Either way, a
Sure.
person is evolving, and one is being the passenger and one's being the driver.
I'm like, all right, either we're gonna be on this high flying disc, or you need to open the door and tuck and roll, bitch. Because no, I'm just kidding.
I'm like, I'll be right back. That's funny. You're funny.
We gotta have some humor, man. We gotta have some laughter.
Because it's supposed to be fun. I think we've talked about that a couple times. Being just, it doesn't matter what you're doing. A lot of times I think you think of a priest or a nun or someone spiritual or religious, that they've got to be all this seriousness, and it's
Yeah.
not. That's totally unnecessary. That is not, for me, from what feels like right for me, is that's not right. That's not how we were intended to be. We were intended to be happy. I think about angels flying around, the little cherubs, just joy, just flying around, and to me that feels good. And I'd rather be, and either way, like I was saying, either way, it's you're growing. If you took the time to notice that, hey, I felt good while I was talking to Amy, and then went back out to hang out with the family, and it's like I don't feel so good. It's that right there. You're still learning something. You're having an awareness of something. But it doesn't mean. And then I used to be in that victim state. Would be like, oh, I can't hang around these people anymore because they're so bad, and they're not. They're dragging my vibe down, man. But that's not true. If someone has any, I guess, if they can bring your vibe down, you weren't in a good space in the first place, and there's nothing wrong with that either, because again, you're just receiving information from your gauges, letting you know that this doesn't feel good right now. Because I've caught myself several times in the last few weeks. Man, I thought I was in a lot better place than I was right then, because I had a reaction, right? Because I had a reaction to something that I know exactly. But it's cool because, again, man, I'm so thankful for those little messages. I'll take them with grace and ease every time. I love those messages.
Well, even so is when, an experience comes up and I feel like I'm in a good space and somebody comes at me, like almost feeling like verbally attacked in a way, I might come back at them in an attacking type of way, but it was a whole lot less anger behind it.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't as aggressive. So that just tells me, wow, look at you go. You're doing pretty good. And you
And
were able to
thoughtful,
use your
right?
voice.
Yeah. And thoughtful, because you become more thoughtful about how you're even going to respond to that person.
Yeah.
That's the old ways because that's an old way for me. Mine was, if you come at me, I'm coming at you, and it wasn't
Right.
because I wanted to, it was just an automatic, right? I'm back on fight or flight again, because I'm
Right.
automatically responding to the energy around me with whatever's being brought to me the same way that it's being brought to me. And now I might find myself in that same posture, but same coming forward, but then I recognize, and I'm a little bit more thoughtful about some of the things I'm going to say.
Right.
I slow it down, because God, that's one thing I've learned. We don't want to trigger people. I don't mind if my actions trigger you, but if I'm personally coming out trying to push your buttons, that's another thing. That's another
Right.
thing altogether, because that's control and manipulation. And I think when people start recognizing, they'll recognize that a lot of us have been in that, under that guise, that's the way life is, and it's not. It doesn't have to be.
Well, even so, when you take yourself, going back to what you're saying, if I feel like I'm doing pretty good, and then I go back into the space of being around other people, family, whoever, and now you don't feel so good because, quote unquote, they made me feel this way. They made me feel bad about myself. They made me feel angry. They said something that, pissed me off or whatever. That's allowing them to control you, because nobody can make you feel any way except you. You get to choose how you feel. You get to choose whether you want to be angry, or you get to choose to stay in that space of, well, I feel pretty good. And the people wouldn't even phase you. Just like what we're talking about, like somebody comes at me, accusing me of something, and I come back at them in that forward motion of aggressiveness. But I'm also mindful that, because that's my automatic reaction, but I'm also mindful of stick to the facts, right? This has been a thing, stick to the facts, because the facts is speaking truth. And I'm not, like you said, pushing the buttons to get them all riled up and saying something that I may regret later, right? Just because I'm being a bitch about it. I'm just going to say this anyway. And it was, I used my voice, I raised my voice, but I also stuck to the facts and said, hey, that is not what happened. This is why I did this. Because I also had a similar experience recently with that. And I was like, oh, time out. Don't come attacking me, because this is the reason why I did it. And your perception of it is different, right? So I was very proud of myself because I was able to use my voice to stand up for myself, not to come at it in a way of causing more problems.
Yeah.
Right. So the difference. And I felt good about it. I was like, look how strong I am now.
Because you stand in your truth, and truth doesn't have to argue it for itself. It never has to. It just is. It's matter of fact. And and if we recognize, again, it's old trainings. It's old trainings to think that somebody else was the one that caused the problem in the first place. Look at it. You just made your sister cry. I hope you're happy with yourself.
Guilt, control, manipulation.
100%. And then also making someone believe, first of all, if you're the one that's the victim in that situation, making that person realize that I'm a victim because they made me cry. And I'm not saying that the way it came across probably didn't portray very well, but nobody really has that control, because if I'm standing in my power and I'm recognizing someone else as they're coming to me, and I'm in my intuition, I'm in my power, and that person's coming to me feeling all those things, I'm not going to be affected. I can see that person as that wounded child.
Right.
And I don't have to stay in that space. But
The
it's just recognizing.
The distraction is how you're perceiving that person in that moment. And if you're perceiving them as they're being controlling, they're being judgmental, they're being critical, they're being manipulated, that's all distraction, because they can't do any of that to you. Like you said, if you're standing in your power, standing in your truth, none of that would be able to be done.
Yeah. But it's crazy to see how, as a child, just by saying those kind of conversation, how it victimizes one person, how it makes them feel like something could be done outside of them that has an effect on them every single time. And then also making the person feel, the bully, maybe perhaps we could use, sometimes could make them feel like, well, I achieved that.
Empowered.
I did this. I am powerful. Yes.
Yeah.
So a whole different messages. And they don't even have to happen that way. It doesn't have to be that way. It's really just being aware of the words that we're using as we're training. And this is new stuff for a lot of people.
Right.
It's new stuff for me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's great awareness, because we haven't had that conversation before, but to in that moment be able to have that conversation with the two littles, especially the one that feels like they've been victimized, even though that's not their term, but they cried or they felt, anyway, they get upset. Listen, sister, ain't nobody can make you feel this way. You're allowing what his actions were to upset you.
Yeah. But that's our trainings. Our trainings have gotten, I mean, not our trainings, but we've been trained I mean, this has been going on forever, but again,
Yeah.
that's how we create the ripple, right? We are the ripple.
Yeah.
So if you want to change everything, and everybody's a ripple, but what are you rippling out? So
Yeah.
ours is change and enlightenment and upliftment and standing in your power, empowering, like all these things. I would probably list off a whole bunch of words, because it's all the same thing. It's taking you back to yourself. It's leading you back within the
And
truth.
we are the catalyst of changing generations before us and shifting the energy of generations that are coming in. So I just feel like we are that catalyst in this lifetime. That's why we're here to do this work, because
Yeah.
it was coming in now after us. So the generations, sorry, there's my hubby's doing some stuff outside the window, but the generations coming in now, they already get it. They're already getting what we've been doing our healing around.
Yeah.
They're having those. I just watched a podcast just recently. This kid was like I say kid, this guy was probably in his mid-20s or earlier, and he's doing a podcast, and he was talking to Suzanne Giesemann, and he was already on that wavelength with her. Like, he was asking questions and getting what she's already saying, and kind of repeating what she was saying, like he already knew that. I'm like, this is so cool, right? These 20-year-olds and younger, like, they're coming in knowing this, and it's all energy, it's all vibration, because so many people in I'm not saying it's just our generation, but in our generation have been making these vibrational changes, which is affecting everything else. So it's just so cool. And we've said this before, that before long, this is just going to be normal conversation, just standing in the store, right? We're just going to be having these conversations like it's normal conversation, not the drama, not focusing on the news, the politics. Conversations we're having are going to be the normal conversations.
Yeah. Because every single layer of people is creating an area for an opening. It's paving the way for all these other people to come in. The way was paved for us to get here. And now we're paving the way for the new ones to come, because a lot of them probably wouldn't survive it. Gosh, you think about that. If you go all the way back to our super 3D, if you go back to like the 70s or the 80s or whatever, go back into those time frames,
they wouldn't be able to do.
A lot of these people probably wouldn't come in, because they wouldn't have survived in this energy.
No.
So, but that's how we're all paving the way. So we're creating the way, and then it's so crazy. We're creating the way, and then eventually our wisdom will fade out, and then we'll come back in again, because others have paved the way for us. And now it even makes it lighter and different and exciting, because to me, we're in a very exciting time.
Yeah, I agree now. 30 years ago, I didn't agree with you, but
oh yeah,
I agree.
And I wouldn't have either. But my life was led by my ego for forever. I mean, as far as keeping the kids safe, going to work, the vehicle I drove, the house. I mean, my ego in so many facets ran the show. And now I'm like, I have a truck that gets me back and forth to work. I don't know much about it, but it's just a vehicle. That's just a vehicle. So
this is what I got until I get my little orb where I can just transport all over.
Yeah. And not even need it, just to be here. And it's like, okay, I'm going to turn the frequency to this right now, because that matches. I'm trying to even think of a place that I would go to right now. Let's just say, I don't know, anywhere. We'll just say even Mexico. I'm going to tune us into Mexico right now. I'm going to vibrate that frequency. Now I know what that frequency is. I can get my vibrational frequency to that tone. And now I'm a complete match to this. I open my eyes up and I'm sitting in my casita. You know what I mean? It's just that. It's just like that. And I do feel like that's a very strong possibility. But right now, with inside of myself, I have duality, because I am in the 3D and in the 5D. I'm in the human experience and the spiritual, but I recognize a connection between the two. And I'm living my life more and more, actually giving up my freedom, or not freedom, but giving up my control of it, surrendering over to my higher self, because my higher self had intentions when it came into this physical body to do things. And now I've already had the ego experience. So I've had that too. And I love my ego because it's awesome, but it gets to evolve with me. It's not going to get left behind, shoved in a corner, in a closet, cabinet, a box, anything like that. You know, I've embraced it and now I get to evolve forward. So now it's up to each one of us because I'm giving myself permission to do it. And if someone else feels like they're going to get permission to do it themselves, amen.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. All right, let's do it. Bev said. Great conversation. I loved it.
I did too.
We love that you're hanging out with us and watching us and hopefully implementing something into your life, even as just one thing. Just pick one thing that you could take and help shift your energy, shift your life, shift your focus. And share us with your friends and family so that they can be on the know as well. So Tea Time with Amy and Bev, we appreciate you, your time, your energy, and we will be back next week.
See you later.